My mother said something at dinner that I will never forget. Not because it was directed at me, because it was directed at my 12-year-old daughter, who was sitting right there at the table, and after she said it, she just picked up her fork and kept eating. What I did about it made her go pale in front of all her guests on her birthday. But to understand why I did it, you need to understand what led up to it. Because this wasn't one bad moment. This was a lifetime of them, and my daughter just happened to be the one who finally made me stop pretending otherwise. My name is Samara. I have a husband named Joel and a daughter named Zoe. Zoe is 12, and she's the kind of kid who feels everything deeply even when she's trying hard not to show it. She notices things. She picks up on tension before most adults do. She is, without question, the best thing in my life. My mother's name doesn't matter as much as what she did. My father is the kind of man who has spent his entire life keeping the peace by staying silent. My sister Allison is 2 years younger than me, and she has 3 kids, Fraser, 13, Isla, 9, and Luca, 5. That 2-year gap between Allison and me was used creatively my entire childhood. When I was 9 and she was 7, she was just a baby. When I was 13, she was too sensitive. When I was 16, I was told don't be so hard on her. And by the time we were both adults, the message had become, you can handle it. Meaning, she can't, so you will. I handled a lot. For 5 years leading up to that dinner, I had been quietly paying my parents' bills. $950 a month toward their mortgage. $300 for general support. $120 for utilities. Every month. Automatically. While telling myself it was the right thing to do. And there was the party account. Mom's milestone birthday was coming, the kind she'd been talking about for months like it was a state occasion. She and Allison set up a shared account for expenses. Communal. Fair. We'll all chip in. Out of the $4,800 in that account on the night of that dinner, $4,200 was mine. Allison and Mom planned everything. Picked the venue, chose the menu, booked the decorations. They used the card linked to that account like it was just there. Like my job was simply to keep it full. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. Right up until it was. The dinner was at my parents' house, 3 days before the party. The table was set like someone had read about family dinners and tried to recreate one from memory. Cloth napkins. Candles. A centerpiece clearly not built to survive children. Mom sat at the head of the table. Dad hovered nearby with the energy of a man who has spent decades preventing explosions by being very, very still. Allison and her husband Paul sat across from us. Their 3 kids were sprawled around the table, Fraser with that teenage look that manages to be bored and offended simultaneously, Isla sharp-eyed and listening, little Luca doing the kind of quiet chaos adults always underestimate. Joel sat next to me. Calm, steady Joel. Zoe sat across from me, picking at her food the way kids do when they're not sure if it's safe to relax. Mom was talking about the party, the venue, the cake, the dress code, and at some point Zoe sat up just a little, leaned forward slightly, and asked, in the most genuine, wanting to belong way, "What should I wear?" I smiled at her, told her we'd figure it out. My mother took a sip of water, and then she said it. "Oh, your daughter isn't invited to my birthday." Just like that. Like it was nothing. Like she was mentioning she'd switched coffee brands. I watched Zoe's face change. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just stopped. Like someone had turned off a light behind her eyes. She stared at her plate and went completely still. Everyone else kept moving. Forks scraping. Allison glancing at her kids. Paul studying his water glass. Dad clearing his throat and saying nothing useful. I put my fork down. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I just thought it should be adults only," Mom said. "It's my special day. She won't fit in." I looked at Allison's 3 kids sitting right there at the table. "So Allison's kids aren't coming either," I said. Mom waved a hand. "We had to make an exception for them." "Why?" "They're different. You'll understand. Different." The word people use when they don't want to say favorite out loud. So the rule is adults only, but there are exceptions, I said. And Zoe isn't one of them. Mom sighed. Samara, don't make this a thing. I looked around the table. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Paul was somewhere else entirely. And Allison actually said out loud, "It's just a party, Samara." My daughter was sitting right there. Not arguing. Not pushing back. Just quietly deciding she was worth less than she'd hoped. I felt something go cold in me. "We're leaving," I said. "You're being dramatic," Mom said. I didn't argue. I didn't deliver a speech. I stood up, Joel stood with me, and Zoe pushed her chair back and followed. Behind us, as we reached the door, my mother muttered something I'd heard in different forms my whole life. Drama queen, as always. In the car, nobody spoke for a while. Halfway home, Joel said softly, "Maybe she really is doing adults only. Maybe it's just a rule." "It's not a rule if it only applies to one child," I said. He exhaled. He understood. Then Zoe's voice came from the back seat. Small. Careful. "Does Grandma love my cousins more than me?" There are questions you can answer. There are questions you want to answer. And then there are questions that hit somewhere deep and remind you that what happens next is entirely your responsibility. I turned to look at her. She was doing that brave kid thing, clearly hurting but trying not to make it worse for everyone else. I couldn't lie to her face about something she already knew in her bones. "I love you," I said. "And I'm not going to let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." She nodded slowly, like she'd been waiting for exactly that sentence. When we got home, I tucked Zoe in early. Not because she was tired, because the day had taken something from her. Then I sat in my kitchen alone and let the anger settle into something clear. I thought about being 9 years old at Allison's birthday party. Mom pulled me aside before the games started. The rule was kids up to 10, and I had just turned 10 2 months earlier. She handed me a stack of paper plates and told me to help. So I worked the party. Handed out cups, wiped spills, watched the other kids play. Then I noticed 2 of Mom's friends' kids in the game circle. Drew was 11. Lauren was 10 and a half, both older than the limit. "Aren't they too old?" I whispered. "They're a special case," Mom said, and walked away. I stood there with my paper plates and understood something at 9 years old that I should have held on to longer. The rules were never actually rules. They were tools. And they only applied when it was convenient. That pattern followed us everywhere. My school award was too much to gather everyone for. Allison's similar event got relatives, photos, a special dinner. I learned to keep my excitement quiet. I learned to look grateful for scraps. By the time I became a mother, I thought I was over it. Then Allison had kids and I watched the whole system simply find new players. Fraser, Isla, and Luca became the default grandchildren. Zoe was sometimes included, and when she was, it felt like she was visiting someone else's world. And I kept paying the mortgage. The morning after dinner, I woke up feeling something unfamiliar. Peace. Not the soft kind. The kind that comes when you've finally made a decision and your brain stops arguing with itself. Joel was making coffee. He looked at me. "We're not going," I said. "Not going where?" "The birthday." "None of us." He set the mug down. "Are you sure?" "If Zoe isn't welcome, we're not going." He nodded. Zoe came in a few minutes later, still carrying yesterday in the way she moved. I told her we weren't going to the party. Her shoulders dropped. Pure, physical relief, like she'd been holding her breath since the night before and finally had permission to stop. "Oh," she said quietly. "Okay." I watched her and felt something lock into place. Then I opened my banking app. Mortgage help, $950 a month. Cancelled. Family support, $300 a month. Cancelled. Utilities top up, $120 a month. Cancelled. 3 clicks. 5 years of obligation, gone in under a minute. Almost ridiculous how easy it was. Then the party account. Big vendor charges were still pending, the kind that land right before an event. Mom had assumed that card would keep working. She'd assumed my role was to fund and endure. I froze the card. Account balance, $4,800. My contributions, $4,200. I transferred my money back to myself. No note. No warning. Just quietly taking back what was mine. If my daughter wasn't welcome, my money wasn't welcome either. Now came the gift. I bought a plain box. Wrapped it neatly. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that announced itself. Inside, I placed a letter. Written carefully, not in rage, but in clarity. The kind of clarity that arrives when you finally run out of reasons to soften the truth. Mom, I've spent years making excuses for you. I told myself it wasn't favoritism. That I was imagining it. That it was easier to stay quiet. But when you excluded my daughter from your birthday while inviting your other grandchildren, calling it a rule while making exceptions for everyone else, you crossed a line you can't uncross. You said it like it was nothing. She understood. I watched her go still at that table. I watched her try not to cry. I am a mother first. My job is to protect my child. And I will not keep bringing her into rooms where she is treated as less. From today, we will not be attending your birthday, your family events, or continuing contact. Do not call. Do not text. Do not send messages through others. And because there will be no relationship, there will be no financial support effective immediately. I hope you have the life you built. Goodbye. I folded it once. Slid it into the box. Mailed it time to arrive on the day of the party, when gifts were being opened, when she was surrounded by guests, when she expected applause. On the day of the party, our house was quiet in a good way. Joel took Zoe out for ice cream, not as a distraction, just as a simple statement that we were allowed to have a good day. I stayed home. Mid-afternoon, Mom's name lit up my screen. I let it ring twice, then answered. Hello. Her voice exploded out of the phone. How dare you do this to me on my birthday? I didn't respond. Silence is powerful when someone expects you to scramble. I opened your present, she hissed. In front of everyone. Of course she had. She'd probably held it up with a smile, made a little speech about how her daughter couldn't be there but still sent something. She expected something sentimental. Something that made her look cherished. In the background, I heard guests, movement, and then my dad's voice, quiet and close to the phone. What did you do? He wasn't asking me. He was asking her. You humiliated me in front of my guests, she snapped. I didn't read it out loud, I said. Then her voice shifted, fury mixing with panic. The card isn't working. Vendors are calling. The account is empty. What have you done? I withdrew my financial support, I said. Effective immediately. You can't. We need that. You excluded my child, I said. You don't get access to her, and you don't get access to my wallet. It was adults only. Fraser and Isla and Luca are there right now, I said. Interesting rule. She tried to talk over me. They're different. They're family. Zoe is family, I said. Or she was supposed to be. So you're abandoning your own mother? I'm protecting my child, I said. Do not call me again. I ended the call. The silence afterward was the most complete silence I'd felt in years. And it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like space. The smear campaign started fast. It always does with families like mine. By the next morning, calls were coming in from aunts, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years. What did you do? How could you do this to your mother? You only get one mom. After the third call, I stopped engaging. This is private. I'm not discussing it. The people I actually cared about asked differently. So I gave them just the facts. I'd been financially supporting my parents for years. They uninvited Zoe while all the other grandchildren were invited. They called it adults only. It wasn't. One cousin was quiet for a moment, then said simply, "That's not okay." Strange, hearing someone just say it like a plain fact. No debate. No drama. Just, that is not okay. Then a letter arrived in my mailbox. An invoice. Printed letterhead, line items, payment terms. $2,360 for the venue's final balance, due in 5 days. And under responsible party, my name. My number. My email. I called the venue. I did not sign this. I did not authorize this. I am not paying this. Please remove my contact information entirely. When I hung up, there was that feeling again. Not victory. Just the solid feeling of refusing to carry someone else's choices. That afternoon, pounding at the door, Joel looked at me from the kitchen. Zoe froze at the table, the exact same way she'd frozen at that dinner, and I hated that immediately. Go to your room, I told her gently. Headphones on. Is it Grandma? I didn't lie. Yes. But you are safe. Go. I opened the door. Mom, Dad, Allison, Paul, for faces carrying varying levels of outrage and desperation. Mom started immediately. Can you at least pay for the party? We're already in debt. How are we supposed to manage? You're asking me to pay for a party my daughter wasn't welcome at, I said. You have money, Mom snapped. You always have money. I have money because Joel and I work for it. I was spending it on your bills. That's done now. Allison stepped forward. This is unfair. We have 3 children. And that means I finance your life because you had more kids? I asked. Mom excluded my daughter while every other grandchild was invited. You called it a rule. It wasn't. I'm done pretending. Family helps family, Mom said. You're right, I said. Family also doesn't single out a child and call it policy. I'm stepping out of the role you assigned me, the one where I pay and smile and look the other way. So over one party, you're cutting us off? Something settled very quietly in my chest. It was never one party, I said. It was one party too many. Nobody spoke. Dad's shoulders dropped. Allison looked furious, and underneath it, afraid. The fear of realizing she was next in line to carry what I'd been carrying. Mom turned away. After everything we've done for you. I watched them walk back to the driveway. At the end of it, Mom looked back. You're going to regret this, she said. I closed the door. My hands shook for about 10 seconds. Then they stopped. Zoe's door opened a crack. Are we in trouble? She asked. That question hit the old part of me, the part that remembered believing adult anger was a law you couldn't escape. I crouched down in front of her. No, none of this is your fault. Not one part of it. And I am not going to let anyone treat you like you don't matter. She swallowed, nodded, and for the first time since that dinner, she looked lighter. 6 months later, our house felt different. Lighter. Like something heavy had been lifted and we hadn't realized how heavy it was until it was gone. Zoe started singing again, quietly, under her breath while she did homework. Joel would catch my eye across the room when she did it. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. We had real money. When the dishwasher broke, we replaced it without a family summit. Small thing. Enormous thing. Through the grapevine, I heard what mattered. They adjusted. My parents downsized. Mom found part-time work. Allison got a proper job. They managed, because they always could. They just preferred not to when I was available. A full year passed. No contact. Then Allison called. Her voice didn't sound like the woman who'd stood on my porch ready to win. It sounded tired. Mom's been a lot, she said. She's asking me for help with everything. And she paused. I didn't realize how much you were doing. Not really. I waited. And the birthday. What she said to Zoe. Quiet. It wasn't right. It didn't fix anything. But it was the closest thing to accountability our family had ever managed. I'm not calling to pull you back in, she added. I just wanted you to know. Okay, I said. And for once, that was enough. When I hung up, Joel looked over. How do you feel? I didn't have to think. Steady, I said. Because my home was calm. My daughter was safe. She was singing again. And my life no longer depended on earning love from people who treated her like an exception. That was the payoff. That was always the point. Thanks for listening, and if this story hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about people who finally chose themselves without apology. Sometimes protecting your child means letting go of the people who were supposed to protect you.